Um, so we've been having a kind of a yearly repeating talk on Visual Studio extensions, and that that talk kind of ran for a couple of years. And this year I decided, let's do a Visual Studio Team Services extensions or TFS extensions. Though not everything that I'm going to show you today is actually going to work on the on-premise version of Team Foundation Server, unfortunately. All right, so all right. Still working. You might already know me or you might not. I work for Xspirit. I am a Microsoft MVP. I'm a professional Scrum trainer, and I teach. I used to just teach the professional Scrum developer course, and nowadays I teach just about everything from developer up to product owner. And as part of those courses, we encounter a lot of people that say, "All right, it's all lovely, but it just doesn't do exactly what we want." Or is there any way that we can do distributed team planning poker in VSTS? Or we've got one team and they configured something and it looks so beautiful, but I would like to make this apply to all my teams. Can you make it easy for me? And the answer used to be no. And unfortunately, fortunately, since a couple of months already, the whole Visual Studio extension model for team services has been really kicking off, and the number of extensions on the marketplace has been consistently growing. So without extensions, let's just face it, VSTS is a little bit boring. It's all blue and gray on a white background, and it looks beautiful, but it is still a little bit boring. And there's lots of different kind of people that kind of different kind of sweaters on and different kinds of stickers, and that have different kinds of ideas of what Visual Studio Team Services should look like. So let's switch between some of these different sweaters, and let's see what that actually means. And let's make VSTS greater again. I had to steal that one from Trump. Let's try to do that first without extensions, because you can actually get quite far without actually having to install anything into your account. So just looking at the Kanban board, which is the place where most of the product owners and development teams will spend a lot of their time on, you can already configure quite a lot. You can configure colors of tiles, you can configure the username, the personal profile. You can just customize your team's picture so that everywhere in the UI where you have a team picker, you can actually see kind of the picture of what your team stands for. You can add process states. I actually customized my process template to be actual Scrum, because the Scrum process template from Microsoft has a few things that are so 2013-ish, like a committed column. Come on, we haven't been using committed for like 4 years now, so I decided to get away with those, and that's actually quite easy. So let's take that board and actually take the real life example of that one. And if you go into the board settings, then you can customize which fields you want to show. So since this shows a lot of product backlog items, I find it important that it shows business value and that you can edit it right from the UI. But you can also set rules that will define what kind of colors things get. So in this case, we have a rule that for anything that has the state forecasted, it should show up as green. And you can basically write a whole work item query as part of the way you want to colorize things. They apply in order, so that is the easy way of doing that. And come on, hit save, because that would be so logical. What did they do? Try again. Of course this all works yesterday. Styles, in progress, forecasted. So, if this is supposed to be working, you can actually get quite a few nice things done. Oh. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going. I suppose they pushed a new build yesterday. On a number of places, my scroll bars aren't working either, so I have a backup Edge open, and that has been behaving better today. So let's see if Edge actually wants me to save that thing. Work. Backlog board. Thingy style. In progress. Forecasted. Alright, so you'll have to assume that this works. I'm sorry about that. But you can, as you can see, I have been able to customize cards before, and it actually works. So if the title is customized cards, make it purple. If it's if blocked is yes, make the card red. You can do some crazy cool things here, and the same things you can do with tags. So if you have important tags like pending questions or needs review or something like that, and you can actually have them light up. So that they're not just these kind of little gray slabs on your card, but you can, well, very quickly glean some information out of that. At the same time, you can add and change columns, so you can, by default, they will take the state from the process template that you're using, but if you have additional columns, like after new you want to have ready, which some teams actually want, you can, now it actually does save, so that's good. You can add these columns in, and they will then also appear on the board. Something else that lots of teams, especially teams that have issues with, well, issues that come out of production and that need to be fixed quickly, and you can create swim lanes like a fast lane, and that will show up on top of the product backlog, as you can see here. Let's not save and just make sure that everything keeps working. So here I have a fast lane, and I can say, all right, this bug now needs to be fixed very quickly. I can move to the fast lane. It kind of shows up all the way on top. That's easy to do. Another thing that's quite easy to configure now is to have a doing and done. So for approved, which is the kind of whether or not we're readying our work, if we're doing approved, then we're kind of working on making sure that we can actually start doing this. If you move it then to done, it's like, all right, so this is approved to actually be picked up in the next sprint. Same you can do with forecasted. So kind of in done means the developer, the tester, and the people from the team think that it's actually done. But once you move it from forecasted done to actual done is when the product owner looked at it and says, yeah, I don't see anything stupid anymore. All right, so the problem is though, if you have more than one team, this whole settings thing is kind of confined to a single team only. And you have to kind of duplicate all of those settings between teams all the times. I'm not sure if you've encountered that. I see a few people nodding. Yeah, I know that you've encountered that case because we actually started building something to make that to make this whole experience better. And I remember when I was at a large client in Eindhoven, where we were configuring like 60 teams and configuring board configurations from team to team to team, and then we decided to change things. That was fun. So there is now a format painter where I can say, I like this board. Let's copy that to another team. And let's copy that to team B. And then it'll try to figure out if that's actually possible. It should be. No crazy rendering issues today. Pom 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 pom. It'll have me map the process template, but as you can see, this team is running on the same process that I'm using, so that's easy. Of course, it will override everything, and I will say copy settings. Applying. And basically what it's doing is replaying all the changes that I made in the configure the board, and it's replaying that on the underlying team. So, boom, 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 boom. There it is. So now if I switch to team B, you will see that it now has the same board configuration that it used to have on the other team. So this is actually very useful. There's not yet a way in which you can say, this is my master team. If I change this, automatically synchronize all my other teams to look the same. So you still have to copy it over from one team to the other. But this is already so much easier than it used to be. So that's kind of the first extension that I wanted to show you today. It is upcoming and it's not yet released. But we're building this with the ALM Rangers, and it's the import-export Kanban project, which will actually allow you to just copy and paste those settings from one team to another. We're planning to also make this exportable as a JSON, so that you can actually take this from one account and import them into another account, but that's going to be version V next, I suppose. All right, so this is kind of just using the default settings in Visual Studio and actually already making things a lot better. Let's see what we can do after we actually start installing extensions. And before we go in, I promised you guys some crazy extensions, so let's have those. The first crazy extension is the Chuck Norris build enhancer, which is lovely. I'm not sure if you've seen it. This is very, very recently released to the marketplace. You can actually Chuck Norris into your build and your release pipeline, and he will give you wise nuggets of truth in your build. So if we go to the build, I actually have a build that runs that. Boom, boom. Demo CI, and then if I actually look at the last build, you will see Chuck Norris doesn't use web standards as the web conforms to his. Things like these will magically pop up in your build report, and they will just make it a little bit more fun. It has no actual value whatsoever, but I've been talking to the guys that have been building this, and we're looking at creating a dashboard widget that shows sort of the same things, but then about planning, and get it on the backlog and says Chuck Norris doesn't do sprint planning. The sprint conforms to whatever he wants to do, and then things just happen. No value whatsoever, but it's kind of interesting to see how you can extend this this form to actually include some data that was generated out of the build, and it's actually a very nice extension if you want to look at servicing some of the information from your own tasks into it. So as a sample, it's actually quite good. The other one is Galactic Dodge. So when we are compiling and releasing, and that's taking more and more time, of course, we can actually play a game just to make sure that we are, it goes faster and faster and faster. I've actually become quite good at this in the last couple of days, and so this is just to make sure that you're not spending your time on just looking at the screen and waiting. This actually makes it more fun. Again, this is also to show kind of the power of the ability to include just about any JavaScript. I would love to be able to add Git Guitar Hero. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it turns your commit graph into a guitar hero that you can play on your keyboard. That would be lovely too. All right, let's get rid of that. All right, so Scrumish things. Wall estimation. Wall estimation is quite cool. I'm going to show you a few, and then I'm going to actually demo them. The whole idea of wall estimation is that you're showing all of the different cards side by side. Instead of in planning poker, you kind of take them one by one, and it gives you a very good idea to say, all right, so looking at the kind of the whole list of product backlog items that I have on the board, this thing is larger than that one, but smaller than that one, so it should be in between. And it kind of gives you a very easy way to reason about the size of product backlog items. Now, this works both on-prem and on VSTS, and it's actually working quite stably. Spec Map is also a very cool new extension, recently released, allows you to do a story mapping right into the VSTS environment. You can save your story maps, you can reload story maps, you can have multiple maps, you can decide which features to show up, which stories to put on there, and it gives you a way to visualize your backlog in different ways, and is incredibly powerful. These two were for people that are doing quite good at Scrum, and then there's the one for people that are doing quite badly at it, allowing you to, at the end of the sprint, say, all right, whatever's remaining, split that for me, do the magic, create new stories on my next sprint, move the tasks over and pre-populate the whole thing. because that's the way we like things. This used to be a lot of manual work, and in my training courses, I always said there's a reason why that's hard because you shouldn't be doing it. But they decided to turn it into an extension. So, all right, and work item form click actions is also very cool. This is something that I found completely new. As I was preparing for this talk, I've installed like 45 plus extensions into my account, and I've been adding and adding and adding more. This one actually gives you on the work item form the ability to create buttons, like move this work to my coworker, and it just does assign to and changes the area paths. Give that to the other team, and you can list a whole set of actions, change fields, assign work, move it to different workboard columns, that kind of stuff, and it just does it all in one click, and it services that on the board. So let's demo a few of those. Galactic Dodge work. What you will see is that as you install more and more extensions, you get more and more of those beautiful tabs out here. I must say that having a little bit of what is a good idea to show up here and what not makes sense. You just look at that. So the click one sections. So here you can create a new user rule and say, so set this to assign to Jasper. Okay. Boom, boom. New rule. Set field assigned. All right. Add another one. Remove that. Effort is 6. Make it red so I can easily see that. Give away. All right. Hit save. So now I get this give away button. Then every time that I click it, it will execute the actions that I wanted. So if you have a escalate to another team or move to high priority or do something else with it, it'll update the board. Right now it didn't save it, but it's actually also possible to add the actual save action right to it. So if I say here and save the work item, then whenever I click that button, it will just do it and save it all at once. So you have the option to either update it with a number of fields. And I really like this for template things. Like I want to report a bug in this area of the product, and it kind of pre-populates all of the settings. So you can be quite creative with this. You can create shared rules. You can create your own rules. You can promote rules between. So this is actually very, very nice. All right. The other interesting ones was the, let's see, spec map. So so here you can create your own story maps of whatever you are working on. So I took the different steps of the setting up of a VSTS account that was coming out of the sample widget. Sample widget generates a whole bunch of work items right into your account. Also quite a useful extension if you want to demo stuff. And here I can say I want to have a new make story map. And you can quite quickly add your activities here, write some expected outcome, build your story map, hit save, and as you can see I can switch between them, and I can actually save these story maps so I can move stuff around. And for people that are into story mapping, especially if you are on a distributed team, this is an incredibly useful feature because it synchronizes the story map with the actual backlog. You can see whether or not stuff is done here. And you can see progress moving down, so this is actually very, very useful. All right, so let's get onwards. Query-based boards, also very, very new, has a few issues at the moment, but I wanted to show it anyway. If you go into queries, this kind of turns most work item queries directly into a board. So this allows you to configure custom boards based on work items, and as long as you stick stuff on it that it is configured as a board, so feature, backlog, epics, those kind of things, you just click on the board tab and it turns it into a board just immediately. And you get a new version of that board. You can move work around here just like you can on the normal board, but this allows you to filter a board to show only high priority items or stuff that's being queried across teams. And that works quite well, so it's very, very useful. And then if you are into lots and lots and lots of tags, and if you start to customize things based on tags, then you might get quite a few quite quickly. There's this lovely tag manager, and tag manager is also in that same area, tags. And the cool thing about this is, since whenever you enter tags, whatever you enter gets added as a new tag. Sometimes you end up with 7 tags that have almost the same spelling, but they're not exactly quite the same. So right here you can actually edit them, save them, and if you edit them to be the same name of a thing that already exists, it merges the tags. In this way you can very, very quickly clean that up, make sure that you have only the tags that you want. And then combined with the coloring rules that we saw before, you can make sure that the tags get a nice and sharp and bright color when you're looking at them. All right. So who's working with digital boards on VSTS but also has a physical board? A few folks. Is that fun? Yeah. Who's doing that distributed? So only one person. Why are you not doing physical boards? Because it's hard to get them synchronized? More work? Yeah. So you know that moving post-its by hand can release this endorphins and make you really happy. It does, and it makes people more committed to the work that they're doing, because the act of just touching something and moving it does wonders to the brain. There is an extension called Agile Cards, and the folks at Spartez were nice enough to just give that to me, so I can actually show it without having to start the trial. And the whole idea is that if you lay out your board, you put these funky QR codes in there, and this is laid out on my table and printed on A4, so it's quite small, but you can print them quite big as well. And then you buy this magic glue stick from Scotch that is re-stickable. This actually turns anything that you glue on the back into a post-it, so you can print out your post-its without having to constantly write them. So that's useful as well. And then what happens is, let's just show this in real. Go to the board scanner, demo team. So first, you set it with print cards. You set it up. You have to configure exactly which columns you have showing up on your board. Then you can print it like this. Here's the settings, what you want to have on your card, how you want to have them printed. And once you have that, it should be showing a board scanner. I can take a photo. I've already done that, so let's steal that from the desktop Scrum board. So it will analyze the picture. It'll try to figure out which cards are where. You can see the green ones, they were already in the right spot. The yellow ones are not where they're supposed to be on the digital board. I can also turn this the other way around, so I can actually have it say, tell me which physical cards to move. So if you want to synchronize the other way around, that works as well. It tells it what it's about to be doing, and then I hit update board. And now if I look at the board, it will actually look exactly like the one board. It will look the same as it looks on the picture. So this is a very, very quick way to move between the items. I did find it the size in which you print things kind of matters. The quality of your camera also matters. They have one for a mobile phone, but this old Samsung just doesn't have the resolution to actually take a decent picture that works all at once. I think I had to take 6 pictures before it recognized all the cards. When I took my SLR, things started working really fine, but taking the picture from the SLR onto the computer, it's not the nicest experience, of course. All right, next. What are we on time? 20 minutes remaining. All right, so analytics. Who's been using the report server on Team Foundation server? Few people. Who's figured out that since 2010 that actually started to break down and doesn't add anything anymore, and they start removing stuff to upgrade performance? Yeah. So this is kind of, they've been working on analytics ever since they kind of decided to move to Team Foundation Services, and then Visual Studio Online, and now Visual Studio Team Services, and it's finally here. So you can actually install the Analytics plugin, and the Analytics plugin will give you, well, analytics, of course. So if you go into dashboards, there's a whole bunch of new extensions that show up right here, and I pre-configured a few. So let's wait for them to load. So you can configure burn downs to burn down whatever you want over whatever period of time that you want it. You can configure your velocity over time across whichever teams you want to report it over, with whichever work item types you want to include in that. And for the people doing more or less Kanban flow kind of work, and are not that much into Scrum and that kind of stuff, cycle time, lead time, and those kind of widgets are also coming in. So this is also to bring it on feature parity with Jira, because Jira comes with these kind of out of the box. Now when you add the analytics, they just end up here as new, so burn down, burn up, cumulative flow, cycle time, lead time, they kind of all come out of the analytics plugin, and you can configure those to your heart's content. So this is configured as a sprint burn down for my demo team, but if I wanted to, I could just as easily turn this into a increment. Get rid of that. So now it generates across all the things, and then here I can say this should be by iteration. And then I can select whichever iterations I want to show up on the board. And then I have a release burn down, or in this case a burn up, because I haven't been doing my job properly in my demo project. So you can configure your burn down to be a release burn down, a sprint burn down, all kinds of ways that you want it. The fact that this is so very configurable did lead me to having to spend a couple of hours to figure out exactly what filters and which sprints, and by date and not by date in which fields, and to finally actually get it right. The cool thing I find as well is that if I save this, you will see here that it has items completed. If I click on that, it will open up a work item query with the items that actually fall under that category, but also the not estimated. And whichever the field is that I'm burning down on, it will generate that. So this will help me with my refinement work to figure out what's the stuff that I still have to estimate in order to get my burn down to actually reflect what I want to. Otherwise, work that's on this list will never show up. So that's also very useful. All right, next. Let's get into DevOps. First part of is code search. Everybody enabled code search? Few folks. The rest of you should. Code search is great. It ships with TFS 2017 if you configure it well. Otherwise, if you kind of skip that during the setup, you might never know it exists. But the cool thing is that you can actually search for keywords in the code. It looks a lot like what you might be used to from GitHub search. But you can very quickly look at, give me all the classes that have the word program in it. It understands inheritance and a couple of other things as well. So this is a very, very easy way if you have lots of projects to, for example, find which projects are using this class across all of my repositories. And it searches Git, it searches TVC, it indexes everything. In which branches do we still have this whole piece of code? Just select piece of code, do code search, find it. This is indexed on the background and it's very, very powerful. Then there were just too many build extensions to go through and demo them all. There were more than 300 build extensions, and they go from just about everywhere, but any extension talk that doesn't mention ReSharper isn't good, I'm told. So there is a ReSharper code quality analysis extension that you can jump in, you can put into your build pipeline, and whatever configuration that you have in your Visual Studio will actually carry over in the build. So if you set something like I don't like vars in your ReSharper configuration, it will break the builds if you have vars in your code and you're trying to build it. The other one that I just had to mention is the VSTS tools tools build extensions, and I'll show you why. Because builds this extension, if you're using the hosted agent, or if you do not have access to the agent that you're trying to build from, sometimes it's incredibly hard to figure out what went wrong. So this actually allows you to just do a very quick list of all the files and where they are, but also list all the variables and their current value wherever in the build pipeline you are. So if you are debugging a build definition and you don't have access to the actual build agent, just plug in a few of these tool tasks, and you'll be able to far easier kind of figure out what's going wrong without having to resort to installing a local build agent and running the build on your local laptop to see what things are actually looking like. So I really love that. I've been using this a lot for the hosted build agent. You can actually set it to just dump everything from C root, and then you can see whatever Microsoft has installed on it, where those things live. I needed to figure out which git.exe they were running because I wanted to use a different one. So you can use this to find Git, then insert a task that just overwrites whatever version they have, and then use that. So it's actually very, very useful. They trash those images anyway afterwards, so who cares? All right. Next one. This I found a really, really nice example of how Microsoft is working on this whole extension business. Everything was there for Azure. Lots of people were complaining that Amazon wasn't there. Amazon was not really moving in this area. They said we have an SDK. You can call our SDK from PowerShell, so we don't really need extensions. But somehow it feels like if there isn't an extension, Microsoft doesn't support it. So Microsoft, together with the Rangers, they built the AWS tools for Visual Studio Team Services. And they were actually so good that Amazon took on the support of that. So Amazon actually kind of ported that over into their GitHub account, and they're taking ownership of it, and they will now keep this thing supported. And there are more and more tools in this whole extension business where Microsoft is kind of setting up something, or they're buying a small party. Then make sure that whatever the real party is that for the tool that you're trying to build takes ownership of it and ships that with the product. So AWS is one, but Vera Code is another. Lots and lots of the security plugins were built by Microsoft together with that company, and I kind of transferred over to get them started. This is a really open extension environment that we just want to grow and grow and grow. All right, let's look at testing. Who's using the Visual Studio Team Services test features? Oh, a few. How many of you have testers that are off-site or somewhere else, or yeah, also a few. So have you looked at the offline test execution? Offline test execution is actually very nice. And this allows you to export your test plan into an Excel file. Kind of like that board thing that we showed before. Test plans. And I can do an offline test execution. So this exports my my test case as an Excel file. I can send this Excel file to somebody. Excel's opening on the other screen. I'll move it over. enable editing. And here I can actually set my outcomes like I would be able in Microsoft Test Manager. And then here it failed. Boo, save. And then I can actually go in here and I can import it. It will read that data, import it, and it generates a test run, and you can actually do all the reporting and all the statistics that you can do when you actually execute this inside Test Manager. You can actually do all of those reportings, querying who ran it, who was the user that actually tested this. All gets imported from this Excel file, so you can distribute these Excel files over to different people. You can have one person doing on Windows 10, one on the iPad, one on something else, have them mark it in this Excel file offline, and then just re-import them all, and you get exactly all the reports that you wanted as if they were executing it in the tool itself. And the other cool part is you don't need licenses to do this. You only need a license for one person that does this import-export, and all the offline usage then becomes free. So that's a very useful kind of part of that as well. Along those lines, there is the Enhanced Export Pro. And in Enhanced Export Pro, that's kind of the same. It has here in the test cases, it generates a nice report that you can print. You can customize these templates. You can show up whatever you need to show up if you have custom fields and other things. It does it both in test, but this same thing works in queries as well. So if I have my query here, I can go to export, and it exports my my whole requirement specification, or my just a grid, or whatever advanced grid that I want. And it exports that whole thing into the to a PDF, and you can save that, you can print that. So if you have people in the requirements area that want to have oversight of exactly what's going on and what's happening, this is very useful. Generating documentation as well. All right, so last area, if this is all not doing exactly what it is that you want and you want more, then let's see if we can actually hook it up to something else. So we have service hooks. With service hooks, you can kind of connect to just about anything. And Microsoft has a product that's called Microsoft Flow. It's a lot like if this, then that. And you can actually connect VSTS directly to Flow. You can connect Flow to Office and to Outlook and to a whole bunch of other tools. And you can write rules. So if a work item is set to a certain state, go to Flow, do something, and just dump that into send an email out to a bunch of people. Go to PagerDuty and trigger an alert, something like that. You can configure that all the way up. So if you want to use that, Microsoft Flow. So Visual Studio Team Services. And it has a whole bunch of kind of predefined recipes that you can pick up on. So auto replies in Outlook. If people reply to email, update the work item and go back. It's a feature that lots of people have been requesting. So you can have it actually monitor a inbox and have full email integration into VSTS without all too much hassle. Trigger new builds. Receive all kinds of emails that are kind of standard, but also integrate with Jira and synchronize stuff. That's useful as well. So there's a lot of existing recipes, and you can take any of these steps, and so this is a flow based out of these two steps, but I can customize these steps. I can add new connections. I can add additional steps in between, so I can go completely crazy. So a case, I know that you will probably make it, and when you walk into the bedroom, a build gets triggered, and anything else happens, because you do the craziest things with home automation, but if you want to link your VSTS into home automation, have all the lights go red whenever the build fails, that kind of stuff, then have your own production build monitor in the houses installed of all your coworkers. Just give them a U set and hook them up. You can really do some crazy things there. All right. So with that, I just say keep calm and customize away. There's lots and lots of ways that you can do it, and I just showed kind of the tip of the iceberg. I can actually show you, if I go into manage extensions, how many extensions I have installed at the moment. Is this a clever idea? It turned out not to. There are some kind of small caveats that I do have to make. As you can see, the UI gets quite cluttered with 700 kind of additional tabs and workspaces and things getting added, and people have already some difficulty finding stuff. The other things that I found is that not all the, if we go to backlog, not all the context menus load as quickly as they used to. Come on. Here you go. Thing is, after it did that once, it becomes fast, but lots of these extensions get loaded into iframes and sandboxed and are actually not running inside of VSTS itself. They kind of have to warm up. I've been talking to the team about that, and extension builders can actually make sure that they load a lot faster if they always want to show their items. So they're now talking to a bunch of people. But I wouldn't recommend installing 60 plus extensions. And the other thing that I would do is test these on some kind of environment where not a lot of people are on. My coworker Jasper was actually in my account as a team member, and every extension that I added, he got an email, and then every extension I uninstalled, he got an email. He was actually on vacation in France, and he came back, and he had like 70, 75, 77 something emails with Jesse installed an extension for you. Oh, and he removed it, and he installed it, and he removed it. If you have like 200 or 400 people in your VSTS account and you start randomly adding and removing extensions, oh, that's going to be so much fun. So play around with this in your own account, figure out exactly what it is that you want, and enable that for the people that you want it to, and have fun with that. With that, my time is almost up, so good timing today. Thank you very much for being here. Any questions? Yep. Yeah. Yep. No, this is hard. It is hard for a reason. The reason being that the fact that if you drag everything to done, a lot of product owners do not agree that that means that the work is done. So what they actually did is, if I drag everything to done, it will actually on my board show up a little exclamation mark, in this case saying the item is done but the work's not done. The other way around, if I refresh the board, it shows a little exclamation mark saying all the work is done but the item is not done. If you want to make this all cool, aggregator, there is a plugin that I actually helped build, and it's not for the faint of heart, but it's called the TFS aggregator. And the TFS aggregator actually will run as a Azure web role, and it will get triggered whenever work items change. And you can do roll-ups, auto close, auto reopen, that kind of stuff. And that actually just runs in the background and keeps your VSTS the way you want it to. It is a little bit fidgety and a large XML file to configure, but it works really well once you have it set up. All right. Thanks, everyone.